You're with Julian on the brown note and celebration time. Kamala Harris has won the 2024 US presidential election and Donald Trump has lost. Now, it's the 13th of August and I'm calling the election. And I've got so far an 8-year track record of getting elections right, particularly when the polls aren't really showing much. Whether it's in the UK or whether it's in Australia, whether it's in America, I have got them right. And you can go back and check on my YouTube channel. In September 2020, I did call it for Biden and I was right. And I said why. And this is 100 reasons why Donald Trump has lost the election already and there's no way back from him, which represents the greatest turnaround of political fortune in modern history. The only comparable event was France. France, they were screaming that the far right were going to win, and they didn't. But Donald Trump, why have you lost? The ramifications for him are insanely big. So I'm going to go through all of my reasons, and there's about 100. One, and I'm not going to list 100. One is positivity. It has been proven time and again that elections are often won on positivity and that the electorate responds to positivity over negative messaging. In America, you can go back to Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, Ronald Reagan. They're the three in the modern era that campaigned on positivity. They talked up things. They're to a degree, you could probably say the same about the first time around with Bush, but not to a massive degree. And certainly not for Bush Sr. in his one tenure in office. Positivity is what the electorate gets energized by and goes to the voting booth by. Toxic negativity is the realm of Donald Trump. He doesn't have a positive bone in his body. He exists in this swamp of toxic narcissism where he continually runs everything down. He runs the country down, he runs his opponents down, and that's how he gets across the line. He gives them cruel nicknames, and he repeats it. Now, America has basically, I think for the last 8 years, got the election equivalent or the political equivalent of PTSD. They are absolutely distraught and despairing when it comes to the political landscape since Donald Trump arrived on it. Where I've mentioned that the number one factor killing Joe Biden was apathy. The fact that he wasn't going to energize. There was no turning a Trump voter. But the problem that they had is that the apathy surrounding Biden, as I put online about why he had to step down, was killing him. Because the Democrats were split wide open, and the fact that people didn't even think that he was going to last a full term was killing them. And suddenly, onto the screen comes the Energizer Bunny, Kamala Harris, and Tim Walz as these happy, gurning, laughing, chipmunky people full of positivity talking up the country and about how it can be great. And you've got Trump out there just trying to slander them. Now, I guarantee you there are a lot of Americans, particularly Americans that are in that fractional percentage that hadn't decided which way to vote, that will grasp onto this for dear life, the positive messaging, the happiness, the energy. They're going to look at these two very friendly, happy, natural people, and they're going to look at these very oily, weird people on the other side who have very stern faces, who are continually saying negative things. At the moment, they're trashing Tim Walz's military career. You know, they're never coming out and saying, we're going to do X to make your life better. We think you could be great. We think this country should be great. Trump exists in a world of saying the country is on the board, like the verge of collapse. And I think after 8 years of this, there's an awful lot of the electorate that are going to absolutely grasp hold of that positive energy. all Trump's going to do for the next 3 months, and it's going to get worse, is he's going to talk the whole country down, and he's going to talk his opponents down. And the more that Kamala and Coach Tim focus on policies and let him go to town, the better they're going to come off. Another major reason is they've wrong-footed him. The entire Republican campaign was based on Biden, and it was winning. They focused so much energy on Biden and Hunter Biden and attacking him to get them across the line that they've got this entire new universe to face that they haven't even really prepared for. And they don't have the time to prepare for it. And I did say at the start I wasn't impressed that Carmela was the likely candidate because I thought a complete newbie would have no baggage. So with Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, they've got a ton of baggage linking them to the Clinton era of politics, the Biden era of politics. Now it's Trump that has the baggage because he's linked to the old world. These are like two newbies out of nowhere. Even though Harris has had her 4 years, they've almost subliminally attacked her, but they haven't done effectively because she's been so useless as a VP that she hasn't ever stood out enough to warrant any large-scale campaign against her. It hasn't left them enough time to do anything. Now, age, their number one attack, is their number one weakness. The Republicans' number one attack on Biden was age and mental capacity and the likelihood of lasting a term. Within an instance, that's now the biggest trouble that Trump has. Project 2025, something that the Republicans are now screaming is a conspiracy theory when they have had most of the primary motivators behind Donald Trump, including J.D. Vance, who wrote a foreword to a book on 2025 just recently, denying they've ever seen it, saying it's a conspiracy theory, just like believing in QAnon, yet it has been codified online and visible for many a year. The idea being that when the Republicans get control under Trump, they already have a plan in place to remove a lot of democracy in America, to appoint Trump-favorable Republicans across the board in the judiciary, in public service, and so on. This is a massive thing. They can deny it all they want, but it's got legs. Trump in the debates. He was going up against the doddery old Biden, and now he is the doddery old Biden. He had a recent press conference where he tried to win black voters back and ended up just abusing them. He has such a big, fragile ego that he cannot handle being challenged, particularly by a black woman or a coloured woman or whatever you want to call her. He cannot handle that. And he's got debates coming up where he's going to get a much younger, sprightly, and more positive opponent. And at the moment, the Republicans seem to be restricting Trump's access to the airwaves a little bit. Because every time he goes on, he's gone off message. Because his new opponent has thrown him so badly. He doesn't like the fact that they've got this runaway success out the gate. And it's wrong-footed everyone. So he's going to go into these debates and he's going to go into press conferences where he will increasingly have to step outside of the Fox News, Elon Musk right-wing news bubble that he exists in and face journalists that hate his guts across the board because he's bullied them and harassed them for the last 8 years, who will challenge him knowing how brittle he is continually. And there's no way out of doing that if you're a presidential candidate. He can't handle being held to account by a woman. Look at the Fox News debate in his first election with Megyn Kelly. He got her removed from Fox News. She mildly pushed his buttons in a completely fair way. And she ended up walking away from the network as one of their biggest stars because he complained so loudly And Fox News has tied its fortunes up so much in him that in the end they couldn't even defend their own. They had to actually let her go and side with him. Even worse, a black woman. And to him, a woman of colour or a black woman, he can't handle being held to account by a white man, let alone a woman of colour. Trump going off script, one of the reasons they're keeping him away from being on camera too much at the moment is his anger is impossible for him to control. And he keeps going off script, attacking people. We've seen in the Senate elections, which were the worst, it was the worst midterm performance by a Republican Party when they've been in opposition for 40 years, the midterms. They did win barely the House of Representatives, but they actually didn't take the Senate. It was the worst performance in 4 decades, and part of it because he keeps going on about the stolen election. It isn't a vote winner for him. It's never been a vote winner for him. And he can't stop. And he's going to be twice as angry when he realises that he was winning this election. Out of nowhere, he was winning it because of Joe Biden. And in a 2-week period, he's definitely lost it. He can't control himself. His natural self, his paranoia, he will be screaming about stolen things and how Kamala shouldn't be in that position. And he will just go on about her and him relentlessly. He genuinely can't believe that he had it won. And the downside for him losing isn't just the fact that his brutal ego can't handle it. He is in the frame for so many different criminal things where he's going to court and getting convicted for things and has more on the horizon. He needed to win the election to pardon himself for all these things. When he's lost the election, all those judiciaries are going to be emboldened by not having to face this man as president ever again. They're not going to look very favourable on him anymore. He doesn't know what to do. His attacks are falling. He's trying the old thing about giving people nicknames. All it comes across as is codified racism and sexism. He called a Jewish member of the American government shifty, which is never a good look. All these nicknames he keeps throwing at the wall aren't working anymore. And for once, the Democrats have finally worked out after 8 years how to deal with him. Absolute ridicule. Just ridicule him. Just laugh at him. Use the same tactics back at him. J.D. Vance has sex with a couch. No one believed it. But he kind of looks like the kind of guy that would. And that's why it stuck. And that's why their attacks on Tim about him drinking horse semen haven't caught on at all. Because no one believed them. Even though no one thinks that J.D. Vance actually did it, he looks like the kind of guy that would. That's why it attacked. They don't know how to attack him. The other thing is they've got a much more mannered campaign, the Republican Party this time. So up until Biden stepped down, they were a much more cohesive and disciplined bunch than they were under Trump's first couple of tries, which is terrifying. But now Trump's in this position. He's gone off script all the time. They can't control him, and they never will be able to. Another element, Kamala Harris was useless as a VP. She was brittle, she was fragile, she didn't come across well. Yet she has come out of the gate so brilliantly. I have to wonder, did the Democrats plan this all along? Did they plan this to happen? Because she has changed overnight since she got promoted to this position as a completely different person. Were they planning this the whole time? Was this the best executed political stunt in history? I don't know. Maybe they actually just got the luckiest break in political history. But the fact that she hit the ground running so well and then got the best running mate she could have possibly get, a guy that is so beloved. Like I've seen Tim Walz described as America's dad, before Fox News stole him. He's that good down-home guy who's genuine and nice and a rock, before right-wing news media turned him into a bitter, aggressive, violent fool who ruins every Thanksgiving dinner by being there. So he's got this great nostalgic energy to him as what a good man can be. And Vance is just this oily, weird corporate freak. You look at Trump and Vance and they're just like these oily weirdos who come from big business, whereas Tim Vance comes from, being a school coach for decades, serving in the National Guard, and they're going after him for that. The other thing is a big part of Biden not being able to generate enthusiasm for votes is the fact that people thought he would stand down because of his age and mental competency. Now, Trump didn't care about who he picked as a VP because all he cares about is being in the limelight. But the public voting for Trump will know that he can be subject to not being able to complete his term. And then you've got Vance as a president. And no one wants Vance as president. No one would vote for Vance as president. Another major area, this is going to be such a long piece. Another major area is enemies and friends and galvanizing versus splitting. Plenty of people in the Republican Party bag Donald Trump behind the scenes and support him in public because they know that it's a death sentence not to do so. Plenty call him an idiot, plenty call him dangerous, plenty in his own party are desperate to see the back of him but can't oppose him because he has complete control over their electorate. So there's this minority of people who are these rabid Trump supporters. And then there are the rest that actually don't like him at all and want him gone. They think he's an idiot. They think he's dangerous. And they're lying that they support him out of fear. And they can't wait for him to go. Many of them have previous grievances on the way that he has abused them publicly. They're not going to be fighting in his corner. They are fighting for Kamala already. Kamala has galvanized a fractured party 2 months ago was all over the shop into a hole that's pointing in the right direction. And with Tim being this perfectly balanced blue-collar union guy ticket, the whole party has like 20,000 new volunteers. She raised something like $300 million in the first few weeks versus $100 million for Trump. So that voter apathy that was them's biggest problem has gone. Harris and Walz have completely energized the party. Trump isn't the same Trump as he was in 2016. He was a breath of fresh air then. He's not a breath of fresh air anymore, and people know him now. And he's not representative of destroying the system as much as he is the system. There are the two wars. The fact that one of the big things killing Biden was the war in the Gaza Strip, was fracturing both the progressive younger Democrats from supporting Biden or doing anything for him, and the Muslim vote as well, which in this, this electoral climate of percentages is a huge thing. Kamala has already not met with, she was refused to sit in Congress when they held a conference with Benjamin Netanyahu. So she's already looking like a much more favourable candidate there. And Coach Tim is also pretty anti-war. So that's something that they can definitely do better on. Ukraine, maybe not. But Walz is a very sort of anti-war, pro-union guy compared to the neoliberalism of most of the modern era Democrats and the neo-hawkish nature of Hillary Clinton or even Barack Obama when it came to foreign policy. We have foreign interference that's going to come up in this election. Obviously, Russia will be massively throwing their weight behind getting Trump in and stopping any further funding of the war in Ukraine. Iran will probably be throwing their weight massively behind Kamala Harris. So I think it's probably 50-50, as well as China will be throwing their weight behind Kamala Harris as well, as Trump has tried to rub their noses in it. See, this is the thing. Trump exceptionalism is another massive element of why he's lost. Trump appeals massively to Americans for saying that it's America first. That doesn't play so well in the rest of the world. So he's not going to get the support from the rest of the world. And where there are these massive online presences in Iran, in Russia, in China, and even in America, seeking to influence the American election by flooding it with misinformation and AI-generated content, he's not going to come off as well as he did in 2016, where it benefited him massively. They're going to keep putting warts under the microscope, because when they do it for Kamala Harris, they're going to look like sexists and racists, and they won't be able to stop doing that. But they're going to go for Waltz, and he's been a decent, honourable man his whole life. So they're just going to throw themselves. The attacks on Waltz will just bring out anecdotes about his past, and people will come forward and say what a great man he was. It's not going to work. You know, VPs might not be anything, but they are when it comes to campaigning. It's going to have a massive influence having Kamala Harris in the marginal electorates, or even not marginal, with the Latino vote. When you've got Trump saying that, you know, Vance is saying, I'm going to deport 1 million Latinos, basically, as soon as we get in office. Latinos are not going to be voting for Trump. They're going to be voting for Kamala Harris. The black vote is going to be voting for Kamala Harris. Absolutely, 110%. You've got your All Lives Matter crew on one side, and you've got a woman of colour on the other side. They are 100% voting for Kamala. The Asian vote, she's half Indian. Who do you think they're voting for? Someone that codifies white nationalist language into his whole being, or somebody that actually has heritage that's Indian? She's got that one sold up. The Muslim vote as well. Trump has been very outspoken in his views on certain races and certain cultures and certain religions. And he is not going to go down well with his... They know, even though the Democrats massively have supported and given Netanyahu so much, they know that Trump is going to give him even more. But mainly it's a woman vote. Trump was wise enough to know that the repeal of Roe versus Wade was a disaster. If you're looking at the three biggest elements in this coming election, the border crisis, the cost of living crisis, and abortion are probably the top three, and the Republicans have fumbled that ball on abortion. Even in Republican states, they keep losing public votes when they try to restrict abortion by using a public vote. They lose those votes. There are 50% of the electorate has been put massively offside by the Republicans' insistence on pursuing this puritanical control over women's bodies. It's not going to play out well for them. Whereas on the other side, the Trump and Vance electorate appeal to virtually no one but white men. There's a fatigue around Trump as well now, with all these court cases just never ending. His mind is going, and we know that his mind is going. It just wasn't shown in such full colour when he was alongside Biden. But he's made so many fluffs and mistakes about who someone is. That's only going to get worse over the next 3 months as more and more pressure is put on him. There's going to be a warmth about Joe Biden stepping down as being an honourable man. It's going to look like one of the most genuine and pro-country moves ever taken by a politician in an era of political narcissism and selfishness. That his last few months in office are going to have a glow about them. And they now have this triple-headed monster fighting Donald Trump. Because Biden can just take as many pot shots at Trump as he wants. He doesn't even have to beat him anymore. And given that Biden has led a pretty honourable life for decades as far as the American electorate are concerned, him stepping down in such a manner will have this kind of glow about it, because it hasn't happened in the modern era. In fact, I don't know the last time a first-term president ever stepped down. We're going back decades. LBJ might have been the last time. Trump can't campaign anymore. He's just this liability. He's spreading conspiracy theories. He's going on about the last election. He's using personal grievances. He's attacking Republicans. He recently was attacking Republicans in Georgia. I think it was Georgia, for not supporting him when he tried to overturn the election. Now, he's made a lot of enemies. The military attacks at the moment are on Waltz, saying that he had a more service record than he did. There's like one sentence when he mentioned being in a war. That's not going to work out in the long run. He has fought for years for veterans. Donald Trump, 5 times he tried to avoid the draft for Vietnam with bone spurs, and he has attacked US servicemen and women relentlessly over the last 8 years, including, John McCain, veterans and heroes. He has attacked them mercilessly. He has made so many comments that are disparaging towards people that have fought for their country. This isn't going to play out in the long run for him. Another thing is Kamala seems to be actually adjusting to the playing field. She seems to be changing everything that was really bad about her. Her prickliness, her inability to communicate, and so on. She seems to have actually noticed all of that and has changed a lot. Trump cannot change. All of his worst characteristics will be amplified by the coming months. Trump is just going to double down on everything that's weak about him. So those are the 100 or so on this very long talky bit of why Trump has lost the election. And I'm going to put my 8-year streak of calling elections correctly on the counter on the 13th of August, saying that there's no way back for Trump and Kamala Harris has won the next election. And the era of Donald Trump will come to a beautiful end. And trust me, the next few months of him realizing how he's lost and can't do anything about it are going to make this whole experience worth it.